The Last of Us. Oh man, Joel's decision at the end of this game still keeps me up at night. After 20 years of surviving in a zombie apocalypse, Joel finally finds something worth living for in Ellie. And then he has to choose between saving her life and potentially saving humanity. Spoiler alert, he chooses Ellie. What makes this ending so dark isn't that Joel saves Ellie, it's that he lies to her about it afterward. He tells her that the Fireflies couldn't make a cure, that there were dozens of immune people before her. But we know the truth. Joel doomed humanity because he couldn't lose another daughter. The final scene where Ellie asks, "Swear to me that everything you said about the Fireflies is true," and Joel just looks her in the eye and says, "I swear." That's when you realize this isn't a happy ending. It's the story of a selfish man choosing his own emotional needs over the future of the human race. And somehow you understand why he did it. Red Dead Redemption 2. Arthur Morgan's death is devastating, but it's not the darkest part of this ending. The real tragedy is that everything Arthur sacrifices himself for ultimately means nothing. He dies trying to save his gang family, trying to get them enough money to escape and start over. But we know from the first game that it doesn't work. Dutch loses his mind completely, Micah betrays everyone, and the gang falls apart anyway. John gets his farm and his family for a few years, but then he gets gunned down by the government in the first game. Even Jack, the kid Arthur died trying to protect, becomes a gunslinger just like the men who raised him. The ending shows Arthur finally finding peace as he watches the sunrise, but the player knows that his sacrifice was ultimately meaningless. The cycle of violence continues, and everyone he cared about ends up dead or broken. Sometimes doing the right thing doesn't actually save anyone. Spec Ops, The Line. This game masquerades as a generic military shooter, and then systematically destroys every assumption you have about heroism and warfare. Captain Walker thinks he's on a rescue mission in Dubai, but he's actually the villain of his own story. The white phosphorus scene. Man, that's when you realize this isn't Call of Duty. You think you're taking out enemy soldiers, but then you see the burned bodies of civilians and you realize you've committed a war crime. The game forces you to keep playing, to keep making terrible decisions, until Walker completely loses his grip on reality. The ending reveals that Walker has been hallucinating most of the game's events. He's been talking to a dead man, following orders from his own guilt-ridden subconscious. The heroic mission was actually a descent into madness. The darkest part? The game makes it clear that you, the player, are complicit in every atrocity because you kept playing. Before we dive deeper into existential gaming dread, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And let me know in the comments which game ending left you questioning your life choices. We're all trauma bonding over pixels here. Silent Hill 2. James Sunderland travels to Silent Hill looking for his dead wife Mary, and what he finds is his own guilt manifest as psychological horror. The town creates monsters that represent his repressed memories and desires, forcing him to confront the truth about what really happened to Mary. The revelation that James actually killed Mary, that he suffocated her because he couldn't handle watching her suffer from her illness, recontextualizes the entire game. Every monster, every puzzle, every disturbing image was his mind trying to process what he'd done. The town isn't haunted by ghosts, it's haunted by James's conscience. What makes this particularly dark is that depending on your actions throughout the game, James might not even survive his revelation. Some endings have him killing himself out of guilt. Others have him accepting what he's done and trying to move forward. But even the good endings leave you wondering if someone who could murder their sick wife deserves redemption. BioShock Infinite. Elizabeth spends the entire game trying to escape her tower prison and see the world beyond Columbia. She has reality-warping powers and dreams of Paris. She seems like your typical rescued princess character. And then the ending happens. The revelation that Booker is actually her father, that he sold her to pay his gambling debts, that Comstock is just an alternate version of himself, turns the entire rescue mission into a nightmare. Elizabeth realizes that across infinite realities, Booker Comstock will always make the same terrible choices that lead to her imprisonment and abuse. So she does the only thing that makes sense. She drowns Booker before he can become either version of himself. The game ends with Elizabeth erasing herself from existence to prevent the cycle from repeating. The woman you spent the entire game trying to save ultimately sacrifices herself to save everyone else from her father's sins. Nier Automata. This game has 26 different endings, and somehow they're all depressing in their own special way. But the real gut punch comes when you realize that the entire conflict between androids and machines is meaningless. Humanity is already extinct. The androids are fighting a war for masters who died centuries ago. 2,000,000,009 spend the entire game developing feelings for each other, but 2B's secret mission is to kill 9 whenever he learns too much about their true purpose. She's been murdering him over and over again, and he's been forgetting each time. Their love story is actually a tragedy of endless repetition. The final ending forces you to delete your save file to help other players complete the game. After 60+ hours of investment in these characters, you have to literally sacrifice everything you've built to save strangers you'll never meet. It's the ultimate statement about the meaninglessness of individual existence and the importance of helping others, even when it costs you everything. Mass Effect 3. After 3 games building up Commander Shepard as the galaxy's greatest hero, the ending forces you to make an impossible choice. Destroy all synthetic life, including your friend Edie and the Geth you just made peace with, control the Reapers and become the thing you've been fighting, or synthesize all organic and synthetic life in the galaxy whether they consent or not. No matter what you choose, Shepard dies. No matter what you choose, the mass relay network gets destroyed, stranding entire fleets and civilizations. The game that promised you that your choices mattered ultimately gives you 3 flavors of Pyrrhic victory. What makes this particularly dark is that it invalidates everything you accomplished in the previous games. Made peace between the Quarians and the Geth? Too bad, you have to kill one of them anyway. Save the Council? Doesn't matter, galactic civilization is about to collapse. Built relationships with your crew? Hope you said goodbye because you'll never see them again. Metal Gear Solid 3, Big Boss has to kill the boss, his mentor and mother figure, to complete his mission. But the twist is that the boss was actually a double agent working for the US government all along. She sacrificed her reputation and her life to prevent nuclear war, and history will remember her as a traitor. The final boss fight is emotionally brutal because you don't want to pull that trigger. The boss isn't really your enemy. She's a hero who let herself be branded a villain to save the world, and Snake has to be the one to kill her, knowing that he's destroying the only person who ever truly understood him. The ending ceremony where Snake receives the title of Big Boss is supposed to be triumphant, but it feels hollow. You can see in his face that he's broken. The man who will eventually become the series' greatest villain was created in this moment, when he realized that even heroes are expendable in the eyes of their governments. Lisa the Painful. Brad Armstrong is trying to survive in a post-apocalyptic world where all women have mysteriously disappeared, except for one little girl he's adopted named Buddy. The entire game is about Brad's desperate attempts to protect her from a world full of men who see her as either a savior or a commodity. But Brad is also a drug addict dealing with his own childhood trauma. His protective instincts gradually become possessive and controlling. The game forces you to make increasingly desperate choices, sacrifice your friends, your body parts, your morality, all to keep Buddy safe. The ending reveals that Brad's protection was actually imprisonment. Buddy leaves him to find her own path in the world, and Brad dies alone, having become the same kind of controlling, abusive figure that traumatized him as a child. His love for her was real, but it was also toxic and destructive. What makes these dark endings particularly effective in games is the element of player agency. Unlike movies or books, you had to make the choices that led to these outcomes. You pulled the trigger, you made the sacrifices, you walked down the path that led to tragedy. Games can make you complicit in ways that other media can't. When Joel lies to Ellie, you were the one controlling him. When Walker commits war crimes, you were the one following orders. When Brad becomes possessive, you were making the choices that pushed him in that direction. The darkest game endings don't just show you tragedy, they make you participate in creating it. They force you to confront uncomfortable truths about choice, morality, and human nature by putting you in impossible situations and asking what you would do. These endings stay with you because they don't offer easy answers or comfortable closure. They leave you questioning, not just the character's choices, but your own. They remind you that good intentions don't always lead to good outcomes, and sometimes the greatest tragedies come from people trying to do the right thing. Alright, that's my breakdown of gaming's darkest endings. Which one messed you up the most? Are you still angry about Mass Effect 3? Still crying about Arthur Morgan? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this dive into interactive despair, smash that subscribe button and tell me what other games have left you staring at the credits in existential horror. Apparently we all love being emotionally destroyed by pixels, so bring on your most devastating gaming recommendations.